There are places where every geological survey raises even more questions. Places that preserve traces of an ancient Earth that has almost completely vanished. Some continue to challenge every assumption about how nature works. The remarkable thing is not that they are so remote, but that they have always existed on our own planet. Only in looking back do we realize that humanity has merely begun to read the very first pages of Earth's history. On Iceland's Reykjanes Peninsula, the ground is opening in a way rarely seen anywhere on the planet. Long black fissures stretch across lava fields, where fire and rock continually reshape the landscape. Simply standing still, you can feel that the Earth has never truly stopped moving. That change sometimes unfolds faster than people can imagine. On November 10, 2023, a magma dike about 9.3 miles long formed beneath the ground in just 8 hours, equivalent to the distance from the Statue of Liberty to the northern edge of Central Park in New York City. Even for geologists, such a rate is rarely observed. With each eruptive cycle, Reykjanes acquires new traces of its ongoing activity. Fissure systems stretching for dozens of miles cut across ancient lava fields, forming symmetrical grabens interspersed with cinder cones created when lava meets water. The entire landscape reflects a planetary crust that is still being continually renewed. The atmosphere can change from calm in an instant as the smell of sulfur spreads across the land and tremors cause objects inside homes to shift on their own. Every movement at the surface originates from the magma system that continues to expand quietly beneath people's feet. Beneath this seemingly quiet land lies a magma system powerful enough to tear open the ground in just a few hours, making human stability seem remarkably fragile. And what scientists have just discovered beneath these rocks makes the story even harder to believe. There are places where every geological survey raises even more questions. The Ilulissat Ice Fjord in Greenland preserves ice layers dating back 250,000 years, reaching depths of up to 5,000 feet, far beyond those of a typical glacial bay such as Glacier Bay in Alaska. Streams of fractured ice pour into the fjord, forming turquoise ice castles as tall as the Empire State Building. Standing before them, you feel as though you are witnessing an ancient force that has never stopped moving. Beneath the stillness lies a colossal ice engine that has never truly rested. Geological advances nearly 130 feet each day, carrying more than 8.4 cubic miles of ice into the ocean every year, nearly 1/10 of Greenland's total annual ice loss. Each ice layer, up to 2 miles thick, preserves a climate record from long before humans built the first pyramids. Yet what is even more remarkable lies within that very harshness. At the bottom of the fjord, where temperatures remain below 35 degrees Fahrenheit, Greenland halibut cannot reproduce, forcing their bodies to reabsorb their own eggs in order to survive. It is hard to believe that just 2.3 million years ago, this place was covered by vast green forests. Humanity has only just begun to read the traces preserved within the ice. In 1871, Carl Fleischer discovered 4,500-year-old stone tools at Kaja. Not long afterward, Fridtjof Nansen completed the first crossing of the Greenland ice sheet, opening an entirely new perspective on the glacial world. The thunder of breaking ice echoes across the fjord like earthquakes. Each year, more than 22 billion tons of ice plunge into the sea, as though an ancient force still possesses the power to break the ocean itself. Some places do not merely preserve Earth's past, they reveal the power of nature that continues to shape its future. From above the Negev Desert, a colossal depression appears among bands of red and golden rock, as though the land itself had once been torn apart. This is Makhtesh Ramon, the world's largest erosion crater, stretching nearly 25 miles and often called the Grand Canyon of Israel. Standing at its rim, you feel as though you are looking into a scar left behind by time itself. At first glance, many people believe Makhtesh Ramon is the remnant of a meteorite impact or an ancient volcanic crater. In reality, it is a rare erosional landform known as a Makhtesh, found only in the Negev Desert and the Sinai Peninsula. Beneath its basin, which reaches depths of 1,600 feet, rock layers 220 million years old still preserve the earliest chapters of the planet's geological history. For this reason, NASA has used the site as a landscape analog for studying terrain reminiscent of Tatooine. Millions of years of erosion have shaped not only the rocks but life itself. Fossilized ammonite walls, towering igneous dikes, and the phenomenon of topographic inversion coexist within this rare landscape. Following a reintroduction program in 1983, the onager once again appeared across this desert, while subsequent surveys recorded at least 10 species of bats living among its cliffs. Human history has also become part of the story of this ancient land. Astronaut Elon Ramon chose Ramon as his surname to express his love for this place. After the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster in 2003, a memorial was built atop Ramon, quietly overlooking the basin that has witnessed millions of years of Earth's history. From orbit, Makhtesh Ramon was once mistaken for the scar of a meteorite impact, yet the entire basin was shaped solely by millions of years of relentless erosion. From orbit, Makhtesh Ramon was once mistaken for the remnant of a meteorite impact, but the truth is even more extraordinary. Time itself carved this colossal scar into the heart of the desert. Some natural wonders are born not from catastrophe, but from millions of years of Earth's own patience. Hidden among Kazakhstan's Tian Shan Mountains, Lake Kaindy lies at an elevation nearly equal to that of Lake Tahoe, yet it presents an entirely different appearance. Beneath its icy turquoise waters, an entire spruce forest still stands exactly where it once grew, as though it had never realized it had been submerged beneath the lake for more than a century. At an elevation of about 6,600 feet, the water temperature rarely rises above 43 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the year. That extreme cold has preserved the spruce trunks almost perfectly for more than 130 years, turning the lake bed into a natural archive of time. Lake Kaindy was formed after a powerful earthquake created fault ruptures stretching up to 110 miles, completely transforming the landscape. For decades, it was believed that the submerged forest appeared after the 1911 earthquake, but recent tree-ring studies tell a different story. The spruce tree stopped growing in 1888, indicating that the forest was submerged immediately after the 1889 Chillik earthquake. Those silent growth rings preserved the answer for more than a century. Today, that story is still not over. The natural dam that created Lake Kaindy is also a structure that geologists continue to monitor closely. Any major change here could affect thousands of people living downstream. These emerald waters have not only buried a forest, but also preserved the memory of an earthquake that continues to shape human lives to this day. And there are still other places where nature continues to preserve history in ways no one could have imagined. Here is the faithful English translation, preserving the original meaning without adding or omitting any content. At the summit of Mount Nemrut in Turkey, rising higher than Mount Washington in the northeastern United States, colossal stone heads have silently overlooked the valley for more than 2 millennia. Every sunrise here begins with a mystery that remains unsolved. Standing at an elevation of about 7,100 feet, Mount Nemrut is where King Antiochus I commissioned his monumental tomb complex in 62 BC. At its center stands a stone mound 160 feet high and nearly 500 feet wide, roughly comparable in height to the statue itself of the Statue of Liberty. Surrounding it are statues reaching up to 30 feet tall, towering like 3-story buildings. Stone heads separated from their bodies, Greek art blended with Persian traditions, and the lion horoscope relief depicting a map of the planets make this place resemble a monument dedicated to both the heavens and the earth. Yet the enormous mound of loose stones continues to refuse to reveal what lies beneath it. For more than a century, ground-penetrating radar and modern geophysical methods have been repeatedly used in the search for the burial chamber of Antiochus I. But every excavation has quickly been filled by sliding loose stones, as though the mountain itself were protecting its secret. 2,000 years have passed, yet the heart of Mount Nemrut remains beyond humanity's reach, despite every technology brought to this place. Perhaps the greatest value of Mount Nemrut lies not in what has been uncovered, but in what still remains beneath the stones. Amid the deserts of northwestern Saudi Arabia, Hegra emerges like a stone city preserved by sand for thousands of years. Red sandstone formations stand isolated across the vast landscape, evoking the familiar scenery of the national parks of Utah and Arizona, yet carrying an entirely different story. Across an area of more than 5 square miles, sandstone formations that took shape around 500 million years ago became the foundation of one of the world's largest rock-cut necropolises. Rising prominently from the desert is Qasr al-Farid, a tomb about 72 feet tall, carved directly from the top to the base of an isolated rock outcrop, a technique that continues to attract particular interest from archaeologists. Yet the story of Hegra does not end with the monuments already known. In 2014, heavy rains shifted the sand dunes, revealing an intact tomb that had never before been documented. Following that discovery, more than 25,000 inscriptions in 10 languages were gradually digitized, step by step reconstructing 3 millennia of trade and cultural exchange at the ancient oasis. Even today, Hegra exists between 2 worlds. Legends of the Mud tribe stand alongside Hijaz railway stations that have been restored as heritage resorts, where the past and the present coexist within the same desert landscape. Every major rainfall has the potential to change what humanity knows about Hegra, because beneath the sand still lie chapters of history that have never been read. At Hegra, the desert does not merely preserve the past, it continues to reveal it in its own patient way. Amid the limestone mountains of Croatia, the Glava spring resembles a giant eye quietly watching the world. Its deep blue surface is so still that few would believe one of Europe's most mysterious karst shafts lies beneath it. Known as the Eye of the Earth, the Glava spring is so deep that divers have reached approximately 510 feet without finding its final bottom. That depth is nearly equal to the height of the Washington Monument, enough to submerge the entire landmark into the sinkhole while its top would still not reach the bottom. Seen from above, its dark blue center resembles the pupil of a giant eye, surrounded by softly swirling emerald bands. Beneath water ranging from 39 to 46 degrees Fahrenheit, rare calcified red algae coat rocks and snail shells with shades of pink and purple, creating a scene that resembles a coral reef within a river. What few people realize is that this ecosystem nearly disappeared when reservoirs and hydroelectric power plants reduced nearly 90% of its natural flow. Only after years of restoration did life gradually return to these ancient waters. Beneath the deep blue beauty of the Eye of the Earth still lies an abyss that no one has yet reached, where nature continues to guard its secrets. And ahead lie other places where what once seemed understood continues to reveal even more mysteries. Cattle draped in ceremonial robes still appear vividly across the granite walls, as though they had been painted only yesterday. In reality, those brushstrokes have endured for 5,500 years at Laas Geel, amid the semi-desert landscape of Somaliland. Standing before them, the distance between the present and prehistory almost disappears. Laas Geel consists of 10 natural rock shelters, preserving one of the oldest collections of rock art in the Horn of Africa. What astonishes archaeologists is not only its age, but also the way its colors have endured through thousands of years beneath the natural protection of the overhanging rock. Although local people had known of the site for a very long time, the world only truly took notice after the 2002 survey. Images of domesticated aurochs, giraffes, and ancient domestic dogs opened an entirely new perspective on prehistoric life, belief systems, and the history of herding in East Africa. The human figures in the paintings always stand with their arms outstretched toward cattle draped in ceremonial robes and adorned with elaborate decorated breastplates. It was this exceptional value that led to the entire site being documented with 3D laser scanning in 2013, preserving every detail for future generations. The paintings of cattle wearing ceremonial robes still shine with vivid colors after 5,000 years of solitude beneath the rock shelters. Their beauty continues to defy the relentless erosion of time. Amid the silent desert, Laas Geel continues to quietly tell the story of a civilization that never truly disappeared. At first glance, they resemble thousands of enormous haystacks freshly gathered from the fields rather than a geological wonder. The dry season blankets the hills in a perfect dark brown, making each cone stand out across the flat plain as though deliberately arranged. Amid the humid heat of the tropics, the scene feels both familiar and so unbelievable that every explanation seems too simple. More than 1,200 symmetrical conical hills spread across over 20 square miles, each rising between 130 and 400 feet. They were carved from ancient coral reefs that were lifted from the seafloor millions of years ago. Erosional notches at the base of the hills have created remarkably sharp outlines rarely seen in nature. Hidden beneath the surface is a complex network of karst caves and underground waterways that sustain the entire core region. It is also home to the tarsia, measuring only a few inches in length, with eyes larger than its brain and the ability to rotate its head nearly halfway around. In 1997, the Chocolate Hills were designated a National Geological Monument of the Philippines. While local communities continue to depend on water from the limestone aquifers to sustain their rice fields, preserving this unique landscape has become a challenge spanning generations. What is difficult to believe is that this entire landscape once lay beneath the ocean. The hills seen today are simply the remaining fragments of a vast coral reef that time lifted above sea level. Beneath these silent hills, the ancient ocean seems not yet to have finished telling its story. Whenever the tide rises, the entire temple seems to separate from the mainland and drift upon the ocean. Perched atop a wave-washed rock, its Hindu shrine appears like a solitary silhouette against the sunset, where the sound of the waves and spiritual stillness exist side by side. Built in the 16th century, Tanah Lot stands on a rock outcrop just about 100 feet from the shore. The walk from the entrance through the marketplace to the sea stretches nearly 1,000 feet, equivalent to 3 American football fields placed end to end, while the temple's history is more than twice as old as the United States itself. Few people realize that more than 1/3 of the rock foundation seen today is actually artificial rock, skillfully disguised following a reinforcement project in the 1980s. Beneath the base of the islet, flooded sea caves remain home to black and white sea snakes, which the Balinese revere as sacred guardians. Today, engineers continue reinforcing the islet against ocean waves and rising sea levels, carrying forward the legacy of the priest Dang Hyang Nirartha, who transformed this offshore rock into one of Bali's most sacred sanctuaries. More than 1/3 of this sacred rocky islet is actually artificial rock, concealed with remarkable skill. That secret has changed the way the world views what once seemed to be an eternal symbol. Amid the endless rhythm of the waves, Tanah Lot continues to preserve the fragile boundary between the power of nature and human faith. Hidden along Italy's Adriatic coast, the San Felice arch rises from a limestone cliff about the height of a 6-story building in Manhattan. The white rock embraces the turquoise sea, creating the impression that the mainland is still reaching out into the ocean. The first thing that deceives the eye is the age of the arch itself. This famous opening is not as ancient as it appears. In fact, it only began forming about 1.6 million years ago, while the surrounding limestone dates back between 140 and 97 million years, when dinosaurs still ruled North America. Below, a small beach about 330 feet long rests quietly at the foot of the cliff. The closer you look, the more the cliff reveals stories that are even older. Geological folds known as slumps preserve the traces of landslides that once occurred on the floor of an ancient sea. Dark bands of flint lie between the white limestone layers, while Aleppo pine forests blanket the cliff tops, creating three colors rarely seen together along a Mediterranean coastline. Even the forest above tells a story of renewal. After the major wildfire of 2007, Aleppo pines regenerated naturally without replanting, with thousands of young trees emerging on every acre. Not far away, a 16th century watchtower still quietly faces the sea. Once it watched for pirates, today it watches boats arriving to see the famous stone arch. The paradox is that the very waves that created the arch are also erasing it, day by day. One day, the rock roof will collapse, leaving only a solitary sea stack standing in the water. Standing beneath San Felice is a moment of witnessing nature both creating and quietly bringing its own creation to an end. Amid the harsh highlands of Bolivia lies a place where the boundary between sky and earth almost disappears. At first, Salar de Uyuni appears as a vast white salt desert stretching all the way to the horizon. No trees, no shade, only light reflecting from an ancient salt crust covering more than 10,000 square kilometers, creating a landscape that feels more like a distant planet than Earth. But the real wonder emerges when the rainy season arrives. A thin layer of water spreads across the entire salt flat, transforming it into the largest natural mirror on the planet. The sky above is reflected perfectly below, erasing the horizon and making the whole world seem suspended among the clouds. From a distance, vehicles appear to be floating through the air. People walk across the endless mirror as if they are moving through the sky itself. In the quietest moments, the sense of distance, direction, and even reality begins to blur. As the sun sets, shades of orange and red spread across the immense reflective surface, turning all of Salar de Uyuni into a glowing world suspended in silence. And amid that ancient sea of salt, humanity becomes nothing more than tiny figures standing where the sky and the earth seem to have become one. most mysterious places on Earth are not beyond humanity's sight. They are simply waiting for the right person to discover them.